Good morning. I'm amazed that when I get my searching glasses on, all sorts of ideas and references come into view. Take the little word daily, D-A-I-L-Y, and the concept of what living daily might mean. In the story of creation, told in the first chapters of Genesis, God does the work of creation on a daily basis. The creation of light, for instance, the first creation, ends with the writer acknowledging, "And there was evening and morning the first day." Other parts of creation follow the same pattern with the concluding statement about, "And there was evening and morning the next day." The creation of humanity has the same format, and the sixth day. Then in the 20th chapter of Exodus, in the Ten Commandments, God gives us this excellent advice about remembering the Sabbath day and keeping it holy. When we move to the teachings of Jesus, we discover a similar emphasis on what the word daily might mean. Of course, in the Lord's Prayer, Jesus has what is an unusual, I call, doubling. That is, saying the same thing twice. Matthew 6:6 sets the advice before us. Give us this day our daily bread. Not give us this day our bread, but note with me the doubling. Give us this day our daily bread. Without a doubt, the prayer is specifically intended to be prayed each and every day. Let me invite you, since we're mentioning this part of the Lord's Prayer, to view the idea of bread, symbolic, from a wider perspective. Think of bread as nourishment in its broadest meaning. Our Father, give us this day the nourishment we need. Sometimes it's physical bread. Sometimes it might be emotional bread that we need. And sometimes that's the most needful nourishment that we have. Or give us emotional bread. We need help in our emotions. If it's mental nourishment, if it's spiritual nourishment, whatever you see that we need the most, give us that kind of bread. Are there some days when the most pressing need is for Christ to nourish our spirit? I think there may be for you as there is for me. Is that the kind of bread, nourishment, that I most need today? Exodus 16 tells the story of God feeding the Israelites during the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, you remember. God tells Moses, "I am going to rain bread," we call it manna, "from heaven for you, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for that day," unquote. Later in verse 19, Moses tells them not to leave any of it until the next day. But when they tried to keep it, it bred worms and became foul. You'll find this interesting story. You may want to read it for yourself. My emphasis is on the daily bread concept, which must have been in some of their minds as they heard Jesus' advice to pray this prayer daily. The final verse of the 6th chapter on the Sermon on the Mount emphasizes this concern that Jesus had for us in regard to worry and concern, problems and troubles. Remember, Jesus says, quote, "So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today." Again, these verses of Matthew, especially chapter 6, will focus our attention on seeing each day as a very special gift and handling it, each one of us, with care, with thanksgiving, and with appreciation for God's love. Move with me to one of the most challenging invitation statements that Jesus ever makes as we consider and apply the concept of daily to our everyday lives. Luke 9:23 reads, "Then Jesus said to them all, 'If you want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me.'" The concept of cross-bearing is the most daunting image. Sometimes some disciples have imitated Jesus carrying the cross during Passion Week, making a public demonstration of the picture of what Jesus had to endure in those last days and in his carrying his cross. I want to take the idea of the cross and apply what you and I might really do to take up our cross daily. What are the essential factors in cross-bearing? Doing something on behalf of someone else, making a sacrifice for someone else, not self, choosing, and I use that word very specifically, choosing to help someone who is unable to do it himself or herself, laying down one's life for one day as an act of faith in what following Jesus means to me. The act of bearing a cross must be based on doing our act out of love, the emotion of love. Taking up one's cross is always a voluntary act. Yes, I believe Jesus chose to bear that cross. Recall Jesus' words in John 10:17, "I lay down my life in order to take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord." What will you and I do today that in some way might be an act of taking up my cross daily? Yes, there's that word again. Do you suppose Jesus really meant for me to take up my cross daily? You mean today? This day? I believe that he did, don't you?